go ahead. There we go. Scan the QR code so that you can sign up for Leland, get access to our free resources, and most importantly, stay in the loop for all the future events we have and all the exciting updates and free content that we'll share with you. Amelia will also go ahead and drop it in the chat just so you make sure you have that sign up link available. Real quick, just wanted to talk about MBA week for those of you who are new and this is your first session that you're attending. First off, thank you for being here and hope we make this super valuable and beneficial for you wherever you're at in the process. We've already had 3 sessions. We're here right now at the Applying and Succeeding as an Underrepresented Candidate event. And then as you can see, we have several more today and a bunch more tomorrow and Thursday as well. So Amelia will go ahead and drop in the chat. You actually have to individually sign up for each session to receive the Zoom link and the details on each of them. So go ahead and do that. Make sure to get involved. We will cover everything you can imagine across the MBA application journey. So would love to see you at many of the sessions and make this whole week very holistic and exactly what you need to get moving in the process. In terms of agenda today, we'll do some quick introductions, talk a little bit about Leland and what we're doing, what we're building, and then we'll hear from our expert panel, which will be the majority of our conversation and by far the most important. So let's dive right in. Would love to introduce a couple of the Leland team members. My name is Erica. I am the head of experience here at Leland. So I run everything from coach experience, customer experience, and then the broader community experience as well. I love planning events for our users. It means so much to be able to connect with each of you and provide you with the help and support you need to reach your ambitious goals. So you'll see me popping off in the chat. I'll be moderating the panel today. And then you'll also see a few of our other team members as well, responding to questions and here to support along the way. But with that, want to introduce you to the 3 most important people here, our amazing panelists. And I'll pass it over to you, Soa, and then each of you can introduce yourselves.
All right, well, great. Thanks for that, Erica. Nice to meet you, everyone. It's good to see so many of you on here. But Soa and Wasili, my claim to fame is that I was our class president at Stanford GSB. I just graduated a week ago, I guess, at this point, but have just been working in a number of different areas around startups. I also work part-time in venture capital, investing in underrepresented founders through Concrete Rose and Accrue Capital. And actually started my career as a teacher. So I have a background in essays, making sure people really are telling their best stories, and have just been working in startups as well. My background's also in consulting, so I just used to learning across a bunch of different systems. But good to meet you and excited to get our conversation going.
I'll go next. Devon Robertson. I went to school, so I was a MBA 2 when she was an MBA 1. I was the president of, not the class president, but Black Business Student Association when I was there. And I graduated 2 years ago. I guess you can do that math. But now I'm at McKinsey. I'm working as an associate out of the Silicon Valley office. I'm currently traveling. I'm in New York right now. But while I was at Stanford GSB, I was I guess one of the founding members of Dream Big, Lead Boldly. If anyone else has joined those sessions, they're great if you haven't. And prior to Stanford, I worked in telecom for Sprint and T-Mobile corporate strategy. I'll pass it on to you, Christina.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Christina Puder. I'm currently a senior product manager at Deal, which is a hyper-growth startup. I work fully remotely, which means I can live anywhere in the world. I chose Madrid, Spain, so it's a little bit later for me than most of y'all. I went to Michigan Ross on a full scholarship and did several fellowships while I was there. And before business school, I worked in financial services and in operations for a member of Congress. And now, I work in the tech industry. I think that's mostly it.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we'll be able to hear their insight as we continue on in this presentation. So really excited that they're all here. Thank you, each of you all over the world for making time, Devon, Soa, and Christina, and all of the amazing folks applicants on the line right now as well. So excited to dive in and hear from each of you later on. Now we want to hear from all of you on the call who are applying to business school. Feel free to drop where you're dialing in from and what you're most excited to learn about today. I think it's always great to virtually hear from each of you, just so we can level set and hear what your expectations are and what you're excited for. Would love to see the chat pop off. I'm happy to write where I'm dialing in from just to get us kicked off. Awesome. New York, Portland, DC. Awesome. Cool. Well, keep them coming. In the interest of time, we'll move forward, but awesome to see Bay Area, Peru, Atlanta. Yeah, awesome. Sweet. Well, real quick, just to get you up to speed on who we are at Leland. I know we've talked a lot about MBA week and Leland as the sponsor and all of that, and our amazing coaches who you're going to meet as our panelists today. But just really quick, wanted to tell you who we are and what we are doing. We're here to help each of you reach your most ambitious goals. So that could be going to business school, getting into product management, even medical school, dental school, law school, whatever it is that you're hoping to achieve. We have the coaches, classes, and content to help you get there. We just launched Leland Plus last night, which is our a huge content library with sample admit resources such as essays, resumes, coach discounts, coach videos, whatever it is that you need content-wise to get started and really tap into that coaching expertise right away. We have it all in the Leland Plus model. So Amelia, if you want to go drop the Leland Plus link just so people can learn about it, we have an amazing discount going on just through MBA week. Hop on that. It's going to be super exciting. And then one last thing I want to say before we dive into our panel is just at the end of the day, we are building Leland to help amazing folks like each of you be successful. And you are all so real to us. Every person you see on this slide is a real person with incredible story, incredible background, and incredible goals. And when connected with the right mentorship and resources and coaching and everything to tell their stories, have been able to achieve these massive dreams of getting into their top business schools and career paths. So our goal with MBA week is to help you be the next face on this slide. Your story is super important for us to help tell, and we value you, and we just want you to be so successful. So keep that in mind throughout the week. Everything is built around helping you be successful. And with that, let's dive into our expert panel. We can keep the chat going on this, but we'll dive into the questions just if you want to write where you're at in the process so our panelists know. Cool. Well, we got 3 amazing panelists. Let's kick things off and have each of you start us off and give us your best tip. I'll go, Devon, you're first on my screen. So go ahead. And then Soa and Christina, if you want to bring us home on this one.
I would say specifically for underrepresented candidates, if you're Black or Hispanic, I would say definitely join MLT. I think that both Soa and Christina are going to say the same answer for that. But in general, I would just say like really have a driving, this is more for like Stanford GSB, like really have a mission to, why you want to get an MBA, or more so what is like your long-term legacy and mission, and how does like Stanford GSB or really any type of MBA program fit into that? That's what I would say like the top advice I would give people from a broader level. So you're on mute.
As always, thank you. So for me, I would just say really just go all in, apply for the places that maybe you think are too challenging to get into, apply to them anyway. Honestly, this whole process is a mix of, yes, working hard to kind of get your best self out there, but really just putting yourself out there in the first place. I've had applicants I've worked with in the past who were just, they're going to count themselves out because they didn't think that they had the test score or the GPA or whatever it was. But the MBA process is really about your full self, your story, your background, and yes, your professional skills, but you are so much more than that. And so really just apply anyway and shoot your shot and just see where it goes from there.
Awesome. Go ahead, Christina.
So adding on to the MLT part, I think one of the key things about MLT is that it really structured the process for me. I love methodically preparing for things. If you ever work with me, I have like a whole structure for preparing for interviews. And so if you can't apply to MLT because you don't qualify, or you miss the application deadline because you have to know like an extra year in advance to apply to MLT, or you didn't get in, just create your own structure, like figure out the things you have to do to apply to business school. You need a resume, you need essays, you need recommendations, you need to take a test, and then make your own plan. So, I mean, the structure is great if you can get it from someone else, but if not, do it for yourself. You can totally do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for getting us started, each of you. I'm already feeling so inspired and excited to double click on a lot of the things you've just brought up. First wanted to hear, we can go Christina and then Soa and Devon on this one in that order. Tell us about your journey applying to business school. What did it look like? Did you tap into any resources, organizations, networks that were made available for you? And what did you find most helpful? Also, if any of the panelists have heard from peers or classmates, other resources that maybe you yourself didn't use, feel free to mention those as well. I think our audience members are just really excited to hear all that's available for them and tap into these amazing resources.
Yeah, so my MBA process started with my best friend going to Fuqua, and she told me to apply to MLT. And when I did it, I thought it kind of looked like a scam. It was, I don't know, like $700 at the time. And my partner was like, what is this? And I was like, Caitlin told me to do it and I trust her. So that was like the start of the journey. And I think it's super useful. And we can talk more about MLT. I think there's another question that you can like dive into different types of it. But MLT, to prepare for business school and apply, I applied through the consortium, and that's how I got my full scholarship. That also then helped me go to OP, which is orientation prep. So a consortium then has a whole thing before business school starts where you can apply to internships. So I got my internship with Amazon in August, which meant my first year I got to like really explore what I wanted to do. I applied to TWIGO, which is for minorities who are interested in finance. I had worked in financial services, knew I wanted to go into product management, but I really spun that for TWIGO and said, I want to do fintech, which is actually what I do now. I literally run international payments for a startup. And TWIGO helped with like a lot of networking. It also gave me extra money on top of my scholarship. And then I also got accepted into Forte, which had like some extra stuff, but really like MLT Consortium and TWIGO were like so helpful in so many ways, from both the application and then my time in school, getting internships, getting jobs, helping me prepare. Yeah, they were really helpful.
Sweet, thanks for sharing.
For me, I would say that one of the biggest challenges of the MBA process is that it's really challenging to go through it alone. I think that's part of what Christina is adding to, and kind of all of those fellowships with MLT and Forte. It's really just helpful to, yes, have the structure, but also to know that there's people who are going through this with you. You're holding each other accountable. You have deadlines that you're creating for yourself that you're checking in on, as well as your friends and people who will be there with you, and you can tap into that network early. And so I think just that's really what we're trying to build out of these resources, and that's why they are so valuable. When I was applying, I was quite overwhelmed. And so, yeah, I did the same thing, tapped into whatever networks I could, was also part of Forte, was also part of MLT. And then the year that I applied, there was also a new program called the Admit Me Fellows. I'll add that name to the chat. But what it is really just a free version of some of these resources that I've mentioned before. And it's a much smaller scale where you still have your cohort of people applying together. You still have access to coaching. You still have access to resources. And you have some of the best admissions coaches there to partner with you as well. So yes, there's organizations that are quite well known like MLT, but there's ones that are growing as well, like Admit Me Fellows, that can be some of the best supportive resources possible. So if you have the ability, definitely apply for those. And if it is too late for those deadlines, you're still not alone. I think just using the admissions counselors, some of the ones on campus are incredibly open and supportive. On GSV's campus, which I know Devon's familiar with, there's a man named Will Torres, who is really just my personal angel in every way, and will just really show up for you. And I feel like every school has their equivalent of that person. And so if you can find someone to build an authentic relationship with and just start to figure out like, hey, here's what I believe in, here's what I'm working on, just find that partnership, and it'll just make the whole process go a lot more smoothly, even though it will still be bumpy no matter what.
Yeah, I would echo all those things. I'll touch on two things in particular. One, I would say, don't be afraid just to reach out to your own network that has gone through the process before. Like, they'll give you great tips on how to apply, or, does it make sense to go to a campus visit or not? Or what are the differences between those schools? I think just having your friends, if you do have friends who go to these schools, and if you don't have friends, like, look up on LinkedIn, find someone who has a similar background to you, and just reach out like, hey, can I grab like 10-15 minutes to chat through like your journey to the MBA process, and ask them any questions you have. The second thing, I think, this is more tactical in the sense that, like, I think it really makes sense to visit some campuses and like create a relationship with admissions officers to differentiate yourself. Like, I would say, like with Fuqua or Michigan, like it makes sense to do that, where it may not make as much sense for like HBS and GSB, where I don't know, there's so many people who are trying to apply, it's not going to make as much of a difference. That's probably not related too much to this question, but it made me think of that when answering it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also thank you, panelists, for dropping all the resources in the chat. I see people taking notes, which is exactly what we want them to be doing. Thank you for sharing these inspiring journeys, and yeah, and paying it forward and passing this knowledge along to the next generation who's actively applying right now. Really appreciate it. Many folks here have commented on how competitive MBA programs are. How can applicants stand out in the application process? I'll call on you, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are here, and then we can double click.
Definitely. Well, Erica already knows this about me, but I personally love storytelling. That's always been something that really brings me a lot of energy, because it's really allowing applicants to show the best and most full version of themselves. So how can you stand out in the process? What is the goal of the MBA application? Is to show you not only as your baseball stats with your school and your test score, but really to create as holistic of a picture of you as you can, such that the admissions committee sees you as a full person and not a commodity. And so to stand out in the application process, what you really need to do is think about, how can I show these different dimensions of myself? What I do with my clients is that we'll create a list of 5 to 6 things that you want the admissions committee to remember about you, whether it's your focus on impact, or whether it's how dedicated you are to serving a space that you care about, or how much you care about fintech. Whatever it is, you list out those things, and then you show across the application, whether it's your resume, your essays, your recommenders, where you're demonstrating each of those traits. Not every trait needs to be in everything, but across the whole picture of your application, that full mosaic, you're really trying to show that full multidimensional version of yourself. And so to stand out, what you want to do is really just dig a little bit deeper, be vulnerable. If your first draft feels like it's a diary entry, you're probably doing it pretty right. And really just kind of be willing to share as full of a version of yourself as you can. If someone picks up your essay without your name on it, someone who knows you and cares about you should know it's yours, right? And so just being willing to just share a bit more about your why, where you're coming from, where you want to go, that is really what makes people stand out. And then one more thing, I think what I realized is that schools don't necessarily want to be the end goal or the end destination. They want to be a partner or a catalyst for whatever you're going to 10x or 100x in the future. So it's not only about, and my goal is to get into X dream school. You're like, this is my goal, to go through dream school to figure out how I can better connect or better get the foundation of where I'm going. And you can show the traction you're making already towards that future goal. If you want to start an ed tech company, maybe you've already worked part-time with some ed tech nonprofits or startups outside of work, but how can you start to show those steps you're taking towards that goal? So a longer list there, but I think there's a few ways, and just try to show yourself as a full person and really just show that traction that you're making towards where you're going in the future.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Christina, do you have anything that you wanted to add here?
Yeah. I think it's true for both MBA programs and applying to jobs, but prepare by researching the school that you want to go to and like why you want to go there. So when you talk to people, you're not asking really generic questions. When you're answering questions in interviews are not super generic. And one of like a really personal story of how this helped me a lot was during MLT, there was a conference. They bring all the admissions officers from all the different schools. And I loved Michigan. And so I had already researched Michigan. I had all these things I loved about it. And I was randomly matched for like an interview prep with the admissions officer from Michigan, and like absolutely crushed it because like I had prepared, I had stuff that tied to like not just my why, but my why about Michigan. And I'm very convinced that this experience and interaction is why I got my scholarship. When he saw my application, was like, oh, I remember her. So I think be prepared and like do your research. Don't just have generic questions and generic answers. It's not useful. You're going to just like sound super boring.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. I love how both Soa and Christina, your advice is so tactical. Like there are actual actions that folks in the audience can take. So thank you for sharing. Devon, anything you wanted to add in here?
I would say that both Soa and Christina knocked it out of the park. We can move on to the next one.
Awesome. Cool. I'll ask you this one then, Devon. Looking back, what advice would you give your pre-MBA self about the process? Or is there anything you wish you would have known going in that you know now and would love to pass forward for those who are currently applying?
I think this has been echoed before, and Soa mentioned this, is like just shoot your shot, right? Like there may be a program that your GMAT falls under, or like you don't think you're gonna make it, or like, oh, it's so prestigious. Like just shoot your shot, like leave it out on the fields, I guess, for a sport analogy, like especially when it comes to like your essay, like have it be like raw, like whatever your story is, like whatever your mission, your legacy is, like leave it out there and explain like why this school is going to supercharge your path to whatever their end goal is. But yeah, I would say like it's more so just shoot your shot, like put a lot of work into it and like things will work out in the end.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Christina, it looks like you have something to say. I would love for you to weigh in.
I was just thinking back, I had these terrible flashbacks. I spent so much time preparing resume, letters of recommendation, all this stuff. Nobody told me how long the application on the school websites takes. Like you get all your stuff together, and then when you're actually ready to submit it, it takes a long time to put them in. Like don't wait until the last days to like actually physically get your application together. Like you do this year-long process and then you're like, oh shit, like I have to scramble to put it all together and make sure I didn't make a typo. Don't do that.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. So anything you wanted to add in here?
Yeah, I would just underscore what Christina just said. Give yourself enough time is the bottom line advice I would say for any aspect of the application. Whether it's your recommenders, recommenders always take more time than you would think to write the recommendation letter, honestly. So if you can get them materials to kind of help them prep 6 weeks in advance, at least 5 weeks in advance, just so that they can start to do that work as well, and give yourself enough time so you just feel like you're showing that best version of yourself. One of the things that was like for me, I am similar to Christina in terms of I plan things out pretty early, but I do know some people I've worked with who are really scrambling towards the end, and yes, they were able to apply, and yes, they were able to go to school, but when they were submitting, they just didn't feel like that was their best version. And so just give yourself enough time to line edit, get a second opinion from someone who really knows you. And yeah, definitely those applications, proofread. Some of them have surprise short answers that you don't realize until you're actually filling out the application form. So just click into everything early, make your account, just know what's there, and then start. But yeah, time is huge.
Thanks for sharing. That's awesome. Something I was going to say. Ooh, there's some echoing. Something I was going to say is off what Soa was mentioning, essays and letters of rec taking time. We have 2 sessions tomorrow on like an intense deep dive on the letter of rec and essays. Soa is actually a panelist on the essay panel, and she's going to be talking a lot about like the storytelling and narrative building and all of that. So Amelia will go ahead and drop those sessions in the chat just so you can sign up, because we definitely want to make sure you get that like in-depth tactical help you need. I think so. A lot of you have touched on this. Like, how do you recommend candidates find the right program for them? I think so often, like, all of us, as we're going through the journey, there's like these goal schools we think of, and like campuses maybe that we've fallen in love with, or, programs out that we've just heard about, or we see on the US ranking, whatever it is. And I was like, we've all been in this process. There's so much more, like finding the right program around like the curriculum and the location and the exit opportunities. Christina, would love to hear from you. I know you talked a lot about like loving Michigan. What did that process look like for you individually? And how do you advise others who are going through the process right now to really not only prioritize top campuses, but find a place that they're going to fit into, be able to contribute, and ultimately be set up for success?
Yeah, so I have like a couple of variations of this. My first one is something I had mentioned earlier, of like business school is not the end, it's sort of a path to get somewhere else. So I think figure out what you want to get out of it, and then figure out what's the right program for you. Some programs are really good at getting you the prestige you might need for a certain kind of job, or the experience you need for a certain kind of job, or you want to become a better leader. So you want to go to a different type of school that has like more action-based learning. I think figure out what you want to get out of it, and then find the schools that fit that. You don't have to go to business school next year. If you don't get into the school that does what you want, maybe try again. Like, this is a really formative time, and like something that you can't really do again. So also make sure it's the right program and you're not settling. I loved Michigan for so many reasons, but a big one at the beginning before I went there was that I've switched careers a lot. I worked for a member of Congress, then I worked in financial services, and then I was going into tech. I was like, I'm probably going to switch careers again. Let's be realistic. And a big part of that is your network and helping you along the way. So as part of the MLT curriculum, you have to reach out to people from different schools to like talk to them. And what I found was that the Michigan people was like by far for me the school that people responded to my email. They did a call with me. They were super helpful. They loved it. And then they would finish the call by connecting me with somebody else. It became like a problem where it like spiraled out of control, and I had more calls than I needed to do. And my thought was like, this is what is going to help me in my career. It's like a network that's really large. Michigan's a huge school. People from the whole university love Michigan, not just the business school. And they're really responsive and helpful. And the job I have now, I got because I reached out on LinkedIn to a girl who graduated from undergrad, 10 years after I did, but from Michigan. And I said, you're working as like an entry-level job at this startup. I'm really interested in it. Can you help? And she did a call with me. She messaged the head of product, and I did an interview with him like a day later. So that's why I loved Michigan. It still works for me, but that's a very different career path than maybe other people want. So figure out what you want and then find the school.
Awesome. So Devon, anything you'd add to the process or how you've advised clients in the past on finding the right fit for them?
Definitely. So I would say before you figure out what schools are right for you, figure out what it is about the school that's right for you, whether it's you want to go to a large school that has a large network or a small network. Are you okay being based in the suburbs or somewhere rural compared to being in a city? Like, this is your life for, yes, the time period that comes after school, but really it's a good chunk of your life. 2 years to spend in a place is really important as well. And so beyond title or beyond US News and World Report rankings, whatever that is that you're going through, think about it as, are these people that I want to build with? Because this is the network that you're going to have for a lifetime. And so a lot of that can come down to, yeah, like what Christina said, how much are people willing to put their names out on the line for you to connect you? Is it something where you don't necessarily need the connection, you just need the gold star stamp? Like what is it that you want to do, and how can that school's strengths align to that goal? But before you even think of the schools you're applying to, I would just list out for yourself what those are, because once you start looking at rankings or school, you can get really confused and really be going for something that might not be your dream, it might be someone else's.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Devon, anything you wanted to add here?
Yeah, I said just one more tactical tip is, when you have those priorities right now of like, okay, this is what I want to get out of my MBA experience, like rank them and do like a weighted like chart of like, hey, this is like how much I'm dedicating to this, and see where each school ranks for you. And at the end of the day, like, you have a formula that spits out, oh, these schools are best for me. And if you get into those schools, great. Like it makes sense to go there, go. Like for me, like I do think like rankings matter for some people. Like it was kind of between Darden and GSB for me. And I think I would have been like, I would have had great times at both schools. Like for me at the end though, like the rankings for GSB kind of put it over the edge. I really wanted to get a consulting gig out of it. And I believed I could have done both, right, at either school. So it just really depends what your priorities are and what you want to get at your MBA experience. Know that up front and then go attack it from there.
Awesome. Were there any steps like when you were, just beginning the process that you individually took to kind of make your initial list?
I would say like for categories wise,
Or schools, programs?
there was, I think like I broke it down by region, industry, or like industry specialty, size. And this is like more through like MLT gives you these things and you're supposed to like do a actual exercise, like, does this matter to you or not? So I did that and I was like, okay, like, do I care about region? Not really. Do I care about size? And then went from there. So I think it really just depends whatever you care about. And it's different when someone gives you like, hey, here are the things you can choose from, which I guess our experience was with MLT.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I feel like just being on the Leland side of things, we often get people who ping us like, how do I select my schools? How do I find which ones are right for me? So really appreciate each of you talking about your own experiences in the process. Now we're going to bring it to a panel question that was submitted to us several times, both for this session and really other sessions we have targeted to groups that might want like the additional resources we've covered today and also help with like showing up as their best selves. So I would love to know, we got a lot of questions around imposter syndrome, not only like in the pre-business school side of things or like the application process, but also feeling it in school and in work environments. What kind of advice do you have for those dealing with these feelings, and how have you been able to kind of internalize those in your own processes?
Yeah, I love this question, and actually just gave a low keynote on it, which is, for context, it's basically Stanford's equivalent of a TED Talk on this topic. And so imposter syndrome is super relevant. It's called Tell Yourself a Better Story if anyone's interested. But really what this is, so it's actually wild to me how no matter how on paper high up you go, people continue to struggle with this feeling. Like I'll talk to someone who's the CEO of a company and they're still like, oh, but am I supposed to be here? Or they just graduated from whatever top dream school and they're still like, oh, but everyone else deserves to be here, but not me. And the more you kind of talk to people and just realize that you're really not alone in that, in any room you walk into, the vast majority of people are gonna still struggle with this. And so how do we navigate it? When you're telling yourself what it is that the story of kind of where you are today, I think sometimes we anchor to those stories we had of ourselves when we were, teenagers and didn't feel like part of the social group, or didn't feel like you could do whatever it is that you wanted to do. But so much has happened since then. And so the more you can start to give yourself miniature reps or miniature practice in terms of that version of yourself that you want to be, the better. So for example, for me, like public speaking, I used to have a terrible speaking, list, mumble, all of that. And so that was always really terrifying for me. But I started really small and was like, okay, can I raise my hand in front of a room and speak today? Or can I take a larger portion of my group presentation? Or can I just kind of do these like small iterative things to get better and better towards that goal? So the next time I'm approaching that goal, I can look back and be like, well, that first time wasn't so bad, so maybe I can do this. And that next time wasn't so bad, so maybe I can kind of step it up from there. But those iterative growth feelings can really help you over time to just completely change whatever it is, the narrative that you're telling yourself. And I think just knowing that everyone around you who you think is beyond you is also feeling this, and talking openly to people about it helps. And so I think when you're dealing with those feelings, yes, like feel the stress and the fear, that what that really is telling you is that thing is important to you, but then go for it anyway to see what happens. And yes, sometimes you strike out, but those couple of times that it goes well really kind of gives you that foundation to show you what else you can do too. But bottom line is you're not alone. Just keep showing yourself what it is that you're capable of, and competence breeds confidence over time.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know Amelia dropped your low-key note in the chat, so I'm definitely going to be watching it and already feel super inspired by that. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and authentically. I know that's going to benefit a lot of audience members and communities. So really appreciate it. So next, I want to talk, and Devon, I think this one's a perfect one for you, about on-campus resources. We've talked a lot about like the pre-MBA journey or like the application process, but would love to hear what resources are made available to students while on campus to be successful. Many of you have mentioned today, panelists, that school isn't just about like getting there, it's about the after and landing the job and the impact you're going to have in the future. So would love to hear. And just everyone as a shout out, Devon has done some incredible things, and I hope he can speak about a few of his own personal contributions today, but and broadly speaking, but Devon, I think there's no one better to kick us off than you. So excited to hear your answer.
Yeah, and just for clarification, the on-campus resources, were you referring more to the professional side of things? Or
Yeah, I think there's like a ton of the clubs or program, whatever it is that they've done both professionally and I think personally and holistically to support candidates in any form.
Yeah, so I think I'm really passionate about increasing economic mobility for the Black community, and why I wanted to become BBSA president was basically to get more Black people into Stanford GSB, like bottom line. So that got me involved with like Dream Big, Lead Boldly, which was targeted for specifically Black students, and it's kind of doing the same thing of demystifying the MBA process, because for me, like I didn't know what business school was until I don't know, like I graduated undergrad, and a lot of people, I went to Harvard undergrad, so like people were kind of they knew what it was about. So like I learned from them, but like if I didn't go to one of these schools, like I would have no idea. So this was really a way to just introduce people to business school. And we worked with a number of different students through Stanford GSB on, okay, like what are the tactics to get into school? Like similar to like what we're doing now. So that's what a Dream Big, Lead Boldly was. From the BBSA co-president aspect, it was really just like reaching out to people and taking calls like, hey, this is like what an MBA program gets you. Like, here's the career opportunities. Here's like the money you can make. This is how it can change your life. So that's how I approached those things. From a professional side, I actually didn't use Stanford GSB's professional resources at all. The way I got my McKinsey offer was through this program, ironically Bain-based, which is through both consortium, OP, and MLPD, both the career services side of the consortium and MLT. Basically, it's like a week program. I got an offer from Bain through doing this week program. I leveraged it to recruit early from McKinsey because they didn't have a program in place before. And then I had an offer for an internship before I even started GSB. So I hadn't used any of Stanford GSB's professional resources, but that's a little background.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Christina, I know just in the interest of time, I want to give time for the last like final tip question, but just out of curiosity, I know Devon has spoken to like on-campus stuff, and you have talked a lot about like your own application help. What about like external programs, or did these fellowships you received help you throughout the process? Anything you want to add here would be awesome.
Yeah. So MLT does both like apply to business school, and then once you're in, there's a totally separate program that helps you apply to internships and jobs. But it's interesting to apply to school. MLT is the powerhouse. When you get to school, in my opinion, consortium is the powerhouse to help you. At Michigan, consortium was like your first family. We had like our own internal chats. Michigan is a huge consortium class. I think there was 50 people out of a 400-person class that was in consortium my year. But they do everything from preparing you before school even starts for internship stuff. You get a buddy who's a year above you who like goes through and like kind of walks you through the process. There's like, we do like intro chats like this for different industries to explain to you, how does the industry work? How does the recruiting work? Like, what do you need to do to be successful in this? So I thought that was super helpful. I think consortium, like I had no idea how useful it would be once I was in school, but it was amazing. The second thing though is I actually use my on-campus resources a ton. We were able to go to the Career Center twice a week. You could go to either a career coach or a peer coach who's a student who's been like through training. You could do resume reviews, mock interviews, like case interviews, also like social networking, whatever you needed. I think I did like 57 of those. They're free, and I thought it was super useful. I don't know. I think there's a lot of on-campus resources people sleep on. I had no idea what I was doing in undergrad. I was a first-generation college student, didn't know what I was doing. I did not do that at Michigan. I used every single thing they offered me, and I think I would recommend that to other people also. Like you're paying to be there, you're spending time to be there. Use it all.
Great. Thank you so much. I am so inspired. I've loved hearing from you all, and I know our audience has as well. This has been so tactical, so helpful, so inspiring. So let's, we have a minute left. Would love one line each. Let's go Soa, Devon, and then Christina, your final tip that you want to leave the audience with.
Final tip is go for it and look for free money when you can. There's fellowships like at Stanford, there's like Knight Hennessy, or there's PD Soros, or there's Consortium, or there's Old Fellows, just kind of like all of these avenues to make the process a bit more affordable as well. So do your research, find a way, and then go all in.
Devon, all you.
I would just say have a growth mentality. Like you're gonna fail in this life, and like whether it's an MBA program getting in or not, like it's gonna be fine at the end of the day. Continue to take shots, continue to grind, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Christina, bring us home.
So I like to ask people, what are you most afraid of, especially when you're going into interviews? Like, what is the question you're most afraid of? And then let's talk through it together, because it's going to be fine. Like, don't just hope it doesn't come up. So think about the application process. What are you most afraid of? And then find friends and advisors who can help you work through it. Like, you can do it. Just know what you're scared of.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. A big round of applause in the chat to our incredible panelists, Soa, Devon, Christina, all remarkable individuals contributing to not only the business school world, but the entire world at whole. And we're so honored to learn from each of you. And we're excited to follow your futures and the inspiration that you continue to leave everywhere you go. So thank you. Amelia will drop their coach profiles in the chat so you can work with them on your own applications. And sign up for Leland Plus, get the coaching you need, scan the QR code to get access to our resources and all of our Leland announcements so we can keep you in the loop, and look forward to seeing you all at more MBA week activities and to get to know you in your processes. Thank you so much, everyone, and have an excellent evening. Take care. Bye now.